Naomi,
Hi,
hey!
I am here.
We
Hello.
can get started. My screen is full. You guys don't know. I'm trying to do 10 things at one time. So I didn't see you, Naomi, but I didn't want to get into the good stuff until you were on the call with
No
us.
worries.
So
Thank you.
how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Excited to be here. I was thinking about some things that, as always, wanting to get behind assumptions and questions, as you know, I like to do. So I had some interesting thoughts about what we could chat about as well today.
I'm so happy. I love when you come prepared. So let me go ahead and formally introduce you. So if you guys don't know, my name is Joy Renique. I am one of the hosts for the Life After Loss virtual retreat. I am the owner of Celebrate Legacy, which is a journal company, and I am a life story coach. Last year, I approached Naomi to talk about. I wanted someone who is a in the medical field, somebody who has that experience. So, Naomi is a psychotherapist, and she talked last year about what your brain does to your grief, not what your grief does to your brain, because your brain was here first. So she broke down how you have this grieving experience and what happens in your brain to process that. Well, this year I wanted her to talk about. We had in 2022, we had this recent addition to the it's called the DSM-5, but it's
Yes.
basically the psychology Bible where all of the diagnoses exist. It takes a long time for things to get in there. They don't just wake up and say, okay, we're going to diagnose people. They do a lot of research. And so in Naomi's presentation for this retreat, I said, let's talk about, is there a doctor in the room? What does it look like to get help from that perspective when it comes to grief? And um, what I love about your presentation, Naomi, is that you always, like, I really feel like I have to put on my thinking cap when I'm watching your video. I love how you really shift your perspective about how to even look at something. What does that mean? Look at it at face value. So I'm going to go ahead and let you give a summary about your presentation, but we have Sharon Brubaker, a grief specialist, and then we have Naomi Eno, psychotherapist, going to give us the idea of what does it mean to see the end of grief. Does grief have an end? So go ahead, Naomi. Let us know who you are. Go ahead. I just wanted to kind of give us a background of how we got here.
Sure. So just a little bit of background about myself, Joy, would be
Yes,
helpful.
ma'am.
Yeah, no problem. So I am a registered psychotherapist in Ontario, Canada. I'm also a clinical supervisor. I specialize in an experiential model of therapy called emotionally focused therapy. So I love to invite clients and people at large, and not just to stay in their head, but to notice the wisdom of how their body feels and to trust that. And that's a huge
Yeah.
part of the therapy process. So I also train new therapists as well, and I have, I guess, a particular interest in how we process emotions, including grief or the difficult feelings, and how we can sit with them, use them as wisdom and guidance in order to actually grow, develop, thrive, make different choices to uh, enjoy life more. So that's very important to me, and I'm very happy to share what I'm learning along the way. And as far as my personal experiences with loss, I love the way that it was named. We will experience so many losses in our life, not just the death of loved ones, which I have experienced. My daughter passed away in 2010. I lost my marriage. Right, we can have a job loss. We could have loss of health. We could have lots of ideas, dreams, goals, going to school, having this career, and those are all important things to acknowledge and work with, because loss is very real. So that's a bit about me.
And tell us about your presentation. They'll have
Yes.
time to watch it, but just give them like a brief summary of what you'll be teaching at that time.
Yeah, so I think this is a fantastic question. Is there a doctor in the room? And as I was saying when I first hopped in the call, what I always love to do is explore, what are we really asking? Why are we asking that question? What are we thinking, or what are the assumptions behind, when we say, is there a doctor in the room? What am I asking for? What is my need there? And if I can understand the question, then often it will help us notice what kinds of answers are really helpful. Am I really asking yes or no for a doctor, or why am I asking that? So that is as sort of where I go with that. It's often something about, my grief is really bad.
Yeah.
Am I unhealthy? Is there something mentally wrong with me? Is this normal? Will it ever end? And so I like to explore, why are we asking those things and how do we go about finding the answer? Will the doctor give you the answer or is there more to the story?
Thank you. And now, Sharon, give us a summary of and I always gave all of the spoiler alerts. But let us know just basically what you were teaching in your session today.
In my session today, I talk through what the early stages of grief actually felt like for me, what the middle section of it felt like for me when the numbness wore off, and approaching the work and what the in session and what I feel like now. And so, I think the biggest thing for me, and I keep sharing this over and over again, is that grievers have choices. And I think they honestly believe from our fear, from the pain, from the actual our shock, we get stuck right here and we're not sure what to do. And healing is a choice. Making that decision to heal, making the decision to get professional help is a choice. Making the decision to join a support group is a choice. And so and also talking about all the different types of choices that are out there, I think is really huge. And we got to keep talking about it because we have to change this conversation. The way that the conversation has gone on in our society, especially what we've been through with COVID and the loss that we've suffered for the last 4 years, we've got to keep talking about this and giving tips and advice to grievers as they're going through this process.
So let's address the elephant in the room. Sharon, does grief ever end?
100% grief has an end. The absolute grief, the initial phase of grief definitely has an end.
And
100%.
what does that look like?
So for me, it looks like, um, and I share in my talk, when I found out Austin had died, I felt like someone stabbed me right in my heart with a knife. My sister will say she was stabbed clear through her soul. And everybody's talking about everything else, but nobody's really talking about the knife. And that's the part where we don't realize we have choices. We have choices about what to do with this knife. And so I went out to find out everything that I could about grief and about processing this pain and working on this knife. Here I sit 17 years later after Austin. I've lost my dad, I've lost my best friend, and that's the one I consider to be my person. The knife was removed. Where the knife was, there's a permanent hole in my heart. In that hole, I miss them. I think about them. I sometimes long for them. I absolutely long to have conversations with Sharon. Like just right now, doing this event, Sharon would have been here for me. She would have been my biggest supporter. She would have been on this page. She's the person that I would have called, right? She and I would have talked to. She would have had ideas. She was so sharp. I miss her. But my missing her doesn't make me break down. Doesn't mean I'm on the bathroom floor doing the ugly cry. I am a little bit lighter. I haven't forgotten them. I know who they are. I can talk about them. I can look at photos of them. I can share about them. But that initial pain of the shock and the brokenness, that's the part that is no longer here for me. And I have it for myself. And I want everyone to be able to achieve this.
So, same question, Naomi. Do you
Mhm.
think that grief ever ends?
I completely agree. It does end, absolutely. And I think the thing I want us to notice is, there's these different experiences of grief, that the initial pain, right? Like the stab, right? And then there's other pieces, right? As alluded to, right? In that process. And when we ask, does the grief ever end? Again, the thing I want us to think about is, do we like the endings? Right? Because
Mm.
after that initial stab, sometimes the ending doesn't feel good. Maybe we numb out. Maybe we lose our capacity to enjoy life. And so sometimes when we ask this question, what we're asking is, do we like how things end? Do they end temporarily and then all the pain comes right back again? Right? Because it will change, absolutely. But we want to be sort of noticing, is the ending one that we like? And if it's not, then as again the options piece, I think that's such a beautiful awareness. It's like, if it's not ending in a way that we like, what's actually happening here that we don't like this ending? And if we're not sure how to create a different ending, then it's great to ask, okay, is there something here I don't know? Because I feel trapped, I feel stuck. I don't like the ending to this story. So maybe I do need to find another path to get a different outcome, one where, the ending is pleasant, acceptable, enjoyable. I mean, if we think about books or movies that we might watch over and over, why do we do that? Because we like the ending.
Yeah.
We don't mind watching it, reading it, because we like how it ends. And if I can sit with my grief, because it might come back, right? That hole in my heart for my daughter, it comes back. But if the ending to my feeling the sadness is one I like, I don't mind being sad again,
Yeah.
right? I can that ending is okay if I'm left feeling in a way that's not distressing.
So I want to say that we talked about what that looks like and that it actually exists, but now let's talk about how to get there. So there are many different ways, and no one way is the right way. Like you have to do it this way to get there. There are some wrong ways, but if you get there, is it really wrong? That's I love how you kind of just it's almost like what came first, the chicken or the egg type of situation. But my question for both of you, because I really want you guys to know that they have two different ways that they help people to get there. Um, when I approached the conversation with you, Naomi, I wanted to make sure I hear a lot of controversy in the grief space about what it means to get to be diagnosed, what it means to get help. I love how at the end of your presentation you put it back in our hands and you empower us really at the end to understand that these diagnoses are just check boxes, and it's some way for you to say, well, you have a number of the symptoms that researchers have say exist. It doesn't mean that it's definite, like you have this diagnosis and you're going to carry it for the rest of your life, but it's likely that you might need a little bit more help to get to that end place that you're looking for because you have all of these symptoms. And so Sharon asked me, well, how does she feel about it? Because it's always controversy about whether or not. Some people say it never ends. You're always going to have this pain. This is something you just got to live with. You'll have to deal with it. So tell us what that process looks like in your profession. How do you get people through that process? And I'll start with you, Naomi.
Sure. Through the process of, you mean like finding a different ending in some way in that grieving
Working
process?
with you, like if they decide to go the route of having a therapist and
Yeah,
being able to, and maybe they were diagnosed or maybe they were referred to you because of
sure.
have going to their doctor and say something is wrong with me, I
Right.
need help. What does that process look like?
Yeah. And so maybe I want to make the distinction, first of all, that a client may come to me with or without a diagnosis, let's say for grief. And, for me, whether or not they're diagnosed does not matter as much as if they're saying, hey, I'm not okay and I need help. That to me matters more. Or maybe they have symptoms and I think it's diagnosable, but if they don't think it's helpful to get the diagnosis, that really doesn't matter too much to me unless it's unmanageable or there's extraordinary impact where they could get more support. For me, it's primarily, okay, if you're not okay, you're not okay, so we're just going to work with that. And so in that process, again, if there is a diagnosis, one of the main uh, indicators or check boxes is that you are not functioning the way you normally do in your capacity, in your relationships, in your work, taking care of the home, just functioning day to day. So we can get a sense of the severity in that case if somebody comes in with a diagnosis. As far as the work together and the healing, again, a big initial stage is simply the awareness of how we feel about our own sadness. And for me, that's always a starting point because if we are judging our own experience as wrong or bad, or there's something wrong with me, I want you to notice how that actually affects your grief. Because if we're already dealing with a loss, but now we're judging ourselves for we should be better, um, I think it always makes us feel worse. And now we're not only dealing with the sadness of the loss, we're also dealing with self-hatred, self-judgment. And so for me, the initial step is less about the grief, but what is my relationship to my own grief? Because if I could have some space to accept and feel normal about all these feelings, then now we could actually deal with the feelings. Now we can actually deal with the grief. But otherwise, we first got to deal with our own judgment before we could even touch the sadness. And so, if we address that and make some space for acceptance and kindness, now we can actually process what it's like to feel sad and notice, what do we usually do? And it's very common, for probably many reasons in our culture, that we tend to grieve alone, that we tend to hold feelings to ourselves, that we tend to be sad by ourselves. Or if we do try to share it, there's so many people, especially the people that come to me. These are clients, right? If you're not experiencing this, you're probably not going to be a client. But for many of the clients, they experience when they do share it, they don't feel better. um, they're told, not to feel that way, to be stronger. It's not that big a deal. Oh, be more positive. All sorts of things that lead them to feel like it's not helpful to be vulnerable and reach out with their sadness, because they'll be told in some form not to be sad. And those are the people that then end up in my office. And so we want to make space to allow those feelings and do something with them. And this is sort of the new ending thing, because for many people, the ending is when I'm sad, I grieve, I reach out, I feel worse. So I'm not going to do that, but then I get stuck,
Yeah.
and the ending is the same. And so we want to create a new ending. And so what we want to do is make some space to actually express and allow these feelings. But the key is to me not left alone. And that's actually the change experience. If you've been left alone in your pain over and over, there's research. That's why some people experience trauma, post traumatic stress disorder. Everyone gets hurt at some point. When we get left alone in our hurt, that's what turns it into trauma. So when we're grieving and we're sad, if we can have a responsive other, if we can have community people, your therapist or others that can be with you in your grief, that's actually what helps that healing process. I'm allowed to feel this way. I'm not alone in it, and other people will hold me and comfort me in it. So there's certain interventions that we use. I won't get into all the nitty-gritty details about how to create that space of connection in sadness, not just with your therapist, but also it's like assessing and finding who are the safe others in your community that you might be able to turn to also get that. Because I don't want my client to have to turn to me forever. I want them to be able to go out and
Yes.
not come back to therapy. So we look at, how do we find those resources? How do we find the safe people you can turn to, and practice risking, in some ways, risking again, because you did before, it didn't work. I'm going to invite you to risk again when it's safe. I'm not going to invite a client to reach out to somebody who has already shown that they're not safe, right? That makes sense. We don't be vulnerable with people if we don't get the response we need. And that's okay, right? You don't want to be vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable, but we want to look at, who can I share this with? People who might understand, to be able to sit with me. And then once I can start to do that, that again, there's another stage of healing there where I'm getting a new ending. I'm not alone anymore. And what's the relief and comfort in that? And again, lots of little things along the way around acceptance, right? Meaning making. But all of this happens much more easily in community.
Thank you. And same question for you, Sharon. What does the process look like to get to the end? Working
So
with you.
I feel like we're going to be saying a lot of the same things,
I
and I
think so.
just I love it. I love when we have a therapist or a doctor or a professional on here, and I'm saying the same thing, but at the 8th grade level. So one of the things I talk about quite often is I keep it around the 8th grade level, because the grieving brain can't accept all of the knowledge. And you encourage me, Naomi, when I hear what you're saying. So thank you so much for that. For me, when a lot of grievers come to my program, they don't even understand that they have permission to grieve. Like, it is okay to grieve. It's okay to cry it out. It is absolutely okay to lay on your bathroom floor for 3 hours and do the ugly cry, even though I don't think you can go 3 hours. But yes, it is okay to do that. So that's kind of where we're at. The exact same thing with assessing where you're at with the emotions. Most grievers, not mo, I don't want to say most, a lot of grievers think that they're doing it wrong. because it feels so bad. This cannot be right. I will never make it through this, which is why I think a lot of grievers don't think that it ends. They think that they're going to get stuck here or they should be like this for the rest of their life. I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. I just need to accept it. This is going to be my new life. So I start with processing the pain of grief. How do we process? What is the emotion? Where is it showing up for you? What does it feel like? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it heavy? What color is it? And we first I have to do the, hey, these are emotions, because as a society, for some reason, we skip that chapter altogether. No, friend, that's not an emotion, because when you start a sentence with I feel like, probably a thought's coming right after that. So I break down the two. We allow them to process. I teach processing, how processing looks. What does it look like for you? What does it feel like? And then we get down to the much needed grief work, which is really a review of the relationship that you came in to grieve. And many times it's finding other grieving experiences that were never grieved, from the third grade, from the fourth grade, from my parents getting a divorce. And now my mother's died, and I still have this grief from the fifth grade when my dad walked out and he never came back. A lot of times it's finding that, and we grieve that as well. A lot of times, in the ending is not the ending that a griever wants. um, it's because something may be stuck still in there. So we go back and we take a review of that. But I teach how to complete the relationship to the pain, the loneliness, the isolation of what's been left behind. What are you left with here? And so I want to say this also to everybody that's listening and that has joined us. This is hard. It's not easy. Because Naomi and I can sit here and talk about it, it is hard. And there is a time where you if you don't do that work and you choose, because grievers have choices, if you choose to hold on to this pain, that's your choice. And yes, I have met people that have had their loss from 20 years ago, and they made the choice to hold on to it. And that was a choice that I was making for myself. I felt like if I held on to this pain of Austin, that it was the thing that he left me. It was like it was a prized possession. And this pain started to become comforting. It felt almost like a gift. And so I'm so glad that I did do the work and that I do the work that I do today, because I can help grievers through and see that.
I want to comment. I think last time we had a chance to chat, Sharon. I think it was the same thing where it was like, yes, yes, you were talking. I'm like, yes, I'm talking about the exact same thing. I use different languaging and so forth, but we are so on the same wavelength about this healing process.
Yeah.
So I resonate with everything you're saying. I think it's beautiful work that you're doing here. And I just maybe just want to add on like little nuances and pieces to it from sort of this
Please.
psychotherapy perspective, but we're talking about the same thing. It's so common to find clients come in, and even my own experience, that we have not learned how to sit with an emotion in a way that feels useful. We don't trust often the process, that if I sit here long enough in the darkness, it will actually transform and something good will happen, because we've often been taught and left alone in these difficult emotions that we don't want to stay there because it never ends well. We just get stuck in it. But the more often we develop that capacity to engage in the emotions and learn experientially, that it actually does get better if I stay here long enough, that I will learn something, that something will change. That's not something I can convince anybody intellectually, which is why I do experiential therapy. We have to do it together, and you have to come out the other side and feel it before you go, oh, okay, it was actually okay to sit there, right? Because I can tell you that doesn't mean you're going to do it. Which is why I think it's so hard for many people, including myself historically, to choose to let go, because it's really scary. What if I let this go? It's familiar to be in whatever state maybe of pain, but if I don't actually know what's going to happen if I try something different, it can be really scary to find out what the other option might be. Even though we might not like where we are, if we don't see or know any other way, and we're not sure it will work. I just want to sort of validate, like, sometimes we don't feel like we have a choice when we actually do,
Yeah.
but our body doesn't feel like that. Our
Yeah.
body feels stuck. And so, again, and that's where getting some support from people like Sharon and myself who have that experience.
Yeah.
Trust me, I will stay with you. I won't leave you alone in this. Can be really helpful. And supportive. And I also want to comment too on the earlier memories, Sharon, that you were talking about. Yeah, in the work that I do, it's not uncommon to have something similar, because what we notice is how I sit with my present day sadness or loss with this grief is probably the same thing that I did the last time I felt this in my body.
Yeah.
And so even though I'm coming to you right now with, okay, I just lost my dad last week, whatever I did with that feeling, I probably did in grade 5 or in grade 1. And so it's not uncommon. As soon as it starts to get evoked in your body, your brain goes, oh, I've been here before.
Yeah.
And then we end up processing that as well and going back in time. So that completely makes sense. And I see that here too. And so there's an unraveling sometimes that can happen when we feel that moment in our body and we change what we do with it. Sometimes it unravels all those memories, because now when I start to feel that sadness and my brain, the neural networks, my experience, I actually create a new ending. The next time I have this feeling in my body, I'm actually going to do something different with it.
Yeah.
And so life can actually change dramatically when we can sit with these feelings in a new way. That new ending carries over. So life will continue. I'll have more losses. But maybe I might feel differently about it. Still painful, still sad, but maybe I can trust that it's not going to end horribly.
Yeah.
And that I can survive this. I'll be okay. Still not easy, but not traumatizing anymore.
Yeah.
So we have some comments in from the audience. We have Teresa, who started off by saying, go ahead, Sharon.
I want friends, but again, I just don't want to go anywhere or do anything. That's very common. It's very common. I feel the same way, Teresa. Hey, Mercy, welcome back. It's been 1.5 years, but now he was sick 4 years, and we were exclusive. I hardly had to talk to anyone but him and the coworkers. That is absolutely very common, and we sort of want to put ourselves in a protective shell, because what I find is that a lot of times we go to share the grief and other people around us are uncomfortable with it, and so they change the subject really fast. They start talking about the Dodger game. To all we want to do is, as the griever, is talk about our person, and they don't want to listen because they change the subject again. Or a lot of our friends don't talk to us because they think they're going to upset us or make us sad, when all we want to do is talk about Austin and how beautiful he was and how inquisitive he was. So all of those things, for sure, definitely. Thank you, Teresa, for your share.
And Naomi, is there a way that I know these things take time. That was something that we haven't talked about yet, is that people think that, okay, I want to get to the end, and I want to get to the end right away.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this for months and months and sometimes up to a year or more. So what direction would you go in to address some of these concerns?
Yeah, well, I think it's sort of this moment to moment, because grief is a very individual journey. It's a moment to moment tuning in with what feels good for you or not. And so even in some of the comments that were posted just now, okay, if I go out and I don't like how it feels being around certain people and I want to be alone, that is excellent information. But I want you to think about it in a number of different ways. Because one option is, okay, then I will just stay home alone. Okay. But then I want you to notice how that feels. Is that actually helping you? Because if it's not, then yes, we don't want to go with these friends because maybe they're dismissive, well meaning, but don't have space for my grief. But being alone isn't helpful either. Then, the question might be, what kind of company do I want to keep? And this is, I've had some interesting thoughts about introverts and extroverts in the last year, because I'm like, is that really a thing? Or is it, is it a matter of being with the right kind of company, right? Like somebody who can sit silently if that's what I need. Am I then still an extrovert because I'm just, the company I keep is one that knows when to be silent or when to talk, right? So it's this idea of who helps me to feel better? Can they respond to me moment to moment in the way that I need, whether that's to say nothing or to allow me to feel or to go distract me and go for a walk or watch a movie? But can they be responsive to me in the way that I need? Because I'm willing to bet that we don't mind being around people that help us feel good moment to moment, whether we need silence or conversation. Um, so I think, in that way, that healing process is checking in each choice that you make. Did that feel good or not? What information does that give me so I can make the next decision?
We have another comment that says, I can relate. I just lost my second spouse and I feel like I'm grieving my first husband too.
Yeah. And again, that makes a lot of sense. Again, we're talking about a particular context in which you have a relationship. This is my life partner, which is, there's different flavors to that than a coworker, a child, and so forth. And so there's going to be similar experiences, memories, associations,
Yes.
and feelings that come up that I've been here before.
Yeah.
I felt this before, right? That makes a lot of sense. And probably also differences. This was person A, who's their unique person. This is person B, who's unique in their own way. So there might be similarities and differences. And again, we want to notice both and what helps with each part to help us move through the sadness that might be the same or that might be different.
A lot of times I feel like it is truly a discovery of talking about it, because by hearing yourself say the thing out loud, then you start to make the connections. Oh man, this was the same last time. But equally as important is also having the person that is helping you through it or helping you to understand it. Sometimes they see it before you do, the connection between the two losses. So absolutely. Shelley, I love that you're sharing this, because this is a lot of what happens when we come into a grieving experience. We realize I'm grieving this person, but all I keep thinking about is this experience that I had, when I was 15 years old. So, and they can't figure out why the two are connecting together and why they're actually showing up together. So being able to talk it out loud and see it and do the research for yourself is absolutely huge. Grievers need to talk. They absolutely need to talk. So I agree that my primary loss is just one loss. I realized that while my husband died in 2017, my mom died in 2014. I never really grieved her loss as well as the loss of a child at 20 weeks into the pregnancy many years ago, and the murder-suicide of my in-laws many years ago as well. My parents were divorced when I was 10. This is Sharon. This is exactly what we're talking about. Bless your heart for being so honest and open and willing to share. I need to grieve the loss of a father who I needed and didn't get. This is your example is exactly what we're talking about. Many times grievers come in, they come into work with us, and they come in for a current loss, and they're not even aware that many of the things that happened in their past were also grieving experiences that were either not handled properly or just pushed down. So my own personal experiences, when I was 16 years old, my mother had a hysterectomy and I was in a wedding. I needed to find a dress. And I had an aunt that took me out. And my parents had 5 children. So every time we went to the mall or did anything, it was everybody went. She took just me. I had an experience like I'd never had in my life. We went to the mall. We tried on all the dresses. She took me out to lunch. I'd never done that. I was 16 years old, and I'd never gone to the mall and included a lunch. When she left the house and we bought the perfect dress, everything was set. She brought me home. When she drove away, I thought this thought, man, I love her so much. I want her to be the godchildren of my parents. I want her to be the godmother of my child. 3 days later, she dies of a brain aneurysm. My parents went away and helped my uncle. They stayed there for many days, nights, planning the funeral, doing all that. They didn't come back and talk to me about grief. They didn't tell me how to grieve. They didn't tell me what to say. And at one point, I got into a fight with my brother, and my brother talked to my dad on the phone. I now, looking back on it, realized that it was grief of why I was fighting with him, because my heart was broken. When my dad got on the phone, he yelled and screamed at me so bad and told me to get it together. It was never talked about. I was left to learn how to do this on my own. Here I am 27 years later, and Austin drowns at the lake, my 10-year-old nephew. I showed up for my sister exactly the way I saw my parents show up when my aunt passed away. I was strong. I tried to help with the funeral. I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. At one point, my dad said he didn't like something to me, the way I was doing something. And I looked at him and I said, I'm the aunt now. That's exactly what I said. Now looking back at it, now that I've had the chance to really look at it and review, I realized that where you think you're going to get the support and the understanding from would be your parents. They didn't know either. They couldn't tell me about grief because they didn't know. They were doing what they had seen their parents do. And that's why I love the fact that we're changing this conversation on grief, just the three of us right now, and the 16 of us over the next 3 days, having the talks about grief and what we need to do, because we have to start approaching it differently and helping our kids and ourselves.
And so I know I've been quiet throughout this. I've been interviewing because I'm not a grief specialist, but as my job as a life story coach, I do have two examples that I want to share. One goes right along with what Sharon was saying. So my very first loss that I've experienced was I was about 9 or 10, the age of my oldest child right now. And I used to spend the summers in Buena Vista, Georgia with my grandmother's mother, my great grandma, and her daughter, my grandmother's sister. They lived like on the same property. She had a trailer here, and then my aunt had a house over here. So I bonded with her that summer like no other. I was over there every day. I had so many memories, and I couldn't wait till the next summer to go back and see her. Well, I found out my mom, they didn't know that I had bonded to her. So when they casually told me that she had a heart attack and passed away, they didn't expect me to respond the way that I did. And like, I was just, beside myself. I couldn't imagine the fact that people just die. Like, I just saw her yesterday and now I will never see her again type of situation. So the next time that I experienced death, they were afraid to tell me because they thought that I would respond the exact same way. And what so happened was that it was my great grandmother. So they thought, oh, she was talking about that with Auntie Buck. I know when my great grandmother passed away, she's going to react that way. So they ended up not telling me till after the funeral. I was in Texas for the summer. They did all of the things. It was a lot going on. When I came home, they wanted to be there in person to tell me. And at the time, I wasn't upset that they waited. I understood, but I was at peace because she had lived a full life. Like, I knew that she wasn't going to live forever. I had processed the idea of her dying already ahead of time. So when they told me, I was like, okay, that's sad. But now as an adult, it's like, well, you didn't give me a chance to actually attend the things and actually be a part of that. That could have been something that I needed for my healing journey that was robbed from me because you didn't know how to tell me. And that happened again when my grandfather died. But when it comes to, because I want you guys to know we have actions that we like for you to take. So I'm going to let you guys after me say what actions you would tell people to take. For me, I write. When my sister passed away, she was just 15. I was 16. I wrote about, and it wasn't until months later, years later, where I actually had to face the pain that I was still carrying with me about my sister's death in the middle of the church. At the end of the sermon, I was on the floor crying, but I wrote about that. And I'll talk about this in my presentation today, but I wrote about it. And what it made me realize is that I was also grieving the relationship that I had with my dad. I was angry at my dad because I felt like the fact that I didn't have a close enough relationship with my sister was his fault. I felt like whatever I knew about my sister, he knew way less about her. He didn't. I wouldn't dare ask him how did he grieve her, because I know that he did, but I was so consumed in my own loss that it never, to this day, I've never asked my dad like, hey, what about Sharena? How do you think about her? And I'm sure that he does, but we don't have that type of relationship. So we've never had that conversation. The type of relationship my dad and I have now, we're on good terms. I'm not angry at him, but all we do is call each other happy birthday, call each other happy Mother's Day, happy Father's Day. That's it. we catch up really briefly. So when you guys talk about all these different losses, my sister's death really did bring up the daddy issues that I had. I stopped using his last name. Nobody even knew his, like, that my last name was my last name after that, because I used that as a way to I don't know if it was cope or if it was just to deal with the pain that or avoid the pain that I was feeling. But writing for me is what helped me to piece that together and realize that it was much more than just losing my sister that I was grieving.
I love that suggestion there of the journaling. And I could think of actually a lot of different ideas, but what I'm going to do is a little bit different right now. I want to actually do the thing instead of talk about it. So I'm going to use, I think it was, I didn't catch the name. I think it was Shelley had posted a little while ago, a tremendous number of losses in her history and her story. And I just want to notice that and just, yeah. Oh, sorry, Sharon. Like, wow. Okay. And that's a lot. That's a lot for a human. And I want for all of you to notice the response after Sharon posted that. The different people that said, my heart aches for you. I also lost, right? And I want all of you, as you're listening right now, just to notice what it's like to have the three of us, to have all these participants going, yes, me too. Yes, me too. And I actually don't want you to rush this. I want you to really pay attention. What does it actually feel like in your body? Maybe even close your eyes to notice what it's like to be here with other people who are saying, it's okay for you to feel this. We feel this too. There's nothing wrong with you. It hurts. It sucks. And you don't need to rush through it. It's okay to sit here. We're with you while you sit here. And I just literally just sit with that. Don't overthink it. Just notice your body and your awareness of others sharing this experience. And just notice, how does your throat feel? How does your chest feel? How does your stomach feel? And maybe the sadness is there because this loss is real. But I also want you to notice what happens if you pay attention to the fact that you're not alone. And how does that impact the pain and the sadness? And so my tip in some ways is to do this. Sit with this feeling right now. Notice what it's like and carry it with you. When this call ends, come back. When you start to feel sad, come back to this moment and remember our faces, remember the names in the chat, and remember what this feels like, that there are other people in the world that are in this with you. And see what it's like if you can reimagine that from time to time, that you're not alone. So that's my tip.
Love it. We actually have another comment that I would like for you to share on. Sometimes I feel that I don't want my sadness to go away, for the pain to go away, as if it is somehow keeping Nathan alive in my memories. And I absolutely know that this isn't healthy. So my brain is one place and my heart is in another.
This is so common for us to think we want to do something, but our heart's in another place. One example, there's many ways to sort of integrate the heart and mind, but I'll use one very specific example. And I have this, I have an Instagram account. I did a reel on this specific sort of question. And the way I responded to this was, if you could imagine Nathan here with you right now and seeing your sadness and pain, how do you think Nathan would feel knowing that you think you need to stay here in order to honor his memory? Would he want you to stay there in order to honor him, or what would he wish for you? And I want you to notice what wisdom might come out of that, because sometimes we think, okay, I need to stay here because that's what's going to keep them alive. But then some part of me goes, because I think about this with my daughter. But if she were with me, she would say, I want you to be happy, Mom. I appreciate that, you feel sadness for me not being here, but I actually don't want you to stay here forever. It would honor me if you, went about and found joy and, still think of me, but I actually don't want that for you. And so I know for myself that helped me. It's like, if I can allow her to be present and comfort me and notice what she actually wants from my life, then there's a way I can actually still honor that, feel sad, but also have other emotions in there too. So I don't know if that helps, but that's one way I like to think about it.
It helped me. Like, I love it. I love the shifts.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what Naomi was saying earlier about feeling. My actionable step is, and what really helped me was setting up a grief corner in my home. So I actually had this most amazing place. It looked out the window, looked out at my property. And I let everybody in my family know that that was my grief corner. That's where I was going to go to when I was feeling sad, when I was feeling anxious. I didn't cry and break down all the time there. Sometimes I just stared out the window. But at that grief corner, I had everything that I was going to need. I would take my phone with me. So I had the songs that I wanted to play. Um, I had my paperwork for journaling. I had a color book and crayons there. Sometimes I would just go there and just be in a relaxing state. I had my Bible there. I had Kleenex there for sure. And sometimes I just needed to go in that, be with my person there. I had photos there. Sometimes I was there late at night and I would be playing songs and I would be absolutely crying. Sometimes I would just be on the phone late at night with Erica as she was crying and sharing. So whatever you need, a lot of grievers tell me it's their bed. They do it right in their bed, that's their spot. They do it in the morning when they wake up or late at night. But having a place where you know you can go, and letting everyone in your family know, hey, when you see me over there, I'm probably going to be grieving and it's okay. I think it's great for the kids to see you going into that spot and having that area to go in 100%. Earlier, there was a comment that says, how do you find these friends? And I think it was Teresa that said it, and other people shared, which I think was really great. But Teresa, I just want to comment just really quickly. Maybe it's not friends, maybe it's a friend. And just like Naomi was saying, maybe you find the person that does allow you that space, that does allow you to talk about your person, that is absolutely okay, and they can listen to you without having comment, without comparing their loss, without trying to fix you. Maybe instead of looking for friends, you just look for the friend that's really going to be there for you. Maybe it's a support group and maybe it's not. But I just wanted to say that, don't look for a gang, because there wasn't a gang there for me. Sharon was the one that was there for me. Absolutely, 100%. I had other girlfriends, but she was my person that absolutely helped me with that. And I could just cry for hours and she would just listen. My family interfered in the last month of my husband's care. Bless your heart, sweetie. I fought really hard to honor his wishes, and they did not listen. After he died, they all disappeared when I needed the support the most. My heart to yours, friend. I found comfort by meeting new people that had empathy and understanding. That's exactly it. We don't know who's going to show up for us. We don't know who knows how to do this, who understands how to do this, who can really be a heart with ears and absolutely listen. My heart to yours, that was your experience through your loss. Truly, I truly want you to know that. And the fact that you were able to find other people that were able to help you, I am truly thrilled to hear that for sure. Having that support as we're going through the grief is huge. Not thinking that we're doing it wrong, not trying to fix it, and not trying to change the subject. Thank you for your share, friend.
And that was Babette. Thank you. Thank you. I have another comment from Sherry. Do you want to read it, Naomi?
Sure. From Sherry, between 2003 to 2023, I lost 26 just family members, not including losing friends, jobs, being a caregiver, having a DNC, being pregnant in the tube, and never having child. Nobody never told me how to grieve. And dealing with a military dad that just told me it was self pity, get over it. And it wasn't until I started the grief school I saw that I was carrying all this in my heart. That's a lot to carry. Thank you for naming it and putting it into words here and recognizing what it is. That's such a huge piece in healing, is just being aware of what's happening, of everything that you're carrying, of how people responded to you, and noticing that, hey, it doesn't have to be this way, right? Coming back to options. This is what I went through. This is why it didn't feel good. This is why I feel like this now. And where are the different moments where people could have responded differently. I could have done something different, where I could get a different outcome. And again, no judgment. We always do the best we can with what we know, including the people who can't show up for us. I have a lot of compassion for them. They too probably have not been taught how to sit with pain. They don't know how to. They're doing the best they can, and they're not meeting what I need. And so, I don't want to judge or blame them either. And what we want to do is honor, but I'm in pain and I do need something different. And so I'm going to seek out those places that are going to help me. And so I think there was a comment earlier that I saw about somebody feeling stuck in pain. Or not being able to let go, or something like that. And I guess I just want to, when we feel that stuckness of pain, I want to invite us to think, what is that pain telling me? It's not going away for a reason. It's trying to tell me something I need that I'm not getting yet. So can I get curious about why I can't let go of this? What is my body telling me? So there's another comment here. I lost my husband this past June by suicide. I feel like I'm drowning. Of course you do. How do I process this kind of complicated grief and roller coaster of emotions? Thank you. Thank you for sharing and asking. I think the first step to get out of drowning is to reach out and cry for help. So this is beautiful that you're saying, help me, right? It is a roller coaster. I think we all here could agree. It's a roller coaster, right? And so I think it's beautiful, even you being here, noticing you're drowning and asking for help. Wow. Thank you. You're on your way. I know it might feel like, okay, well, I want more than that, but I just want to acknowledge you didn't have to be here. That was a choice. You didn't have to post a comment. That was a choice. Keep making choices, just as you did right now. And notice, okay, in these roller coaster moments, what are the different choices I might want to make? Sharon, it looks like you've got something you want to say. I want to invite you. Yeah, no, there's something alive there. Go ahead.
I actually have a question for you. And I agree with you, like not wanting to put anyone down, but I wanted to have the question. I wanted to know from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I have been certified in many, every time a grief certification comes up, I take it because I want to know what everybody's saying, what we're sharing, so that I can offer it to my clients as well.
Yes.
I want to know from you, why are there so many professionals out really keeping the grief doesn't end alive? I just want to know from your thought. Like, there's a lot of people that really push you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. And I don't want to put anyone down or push back against, but sometimes I was recently in a group with, we're all therapists, and one of the therapists came on, and this was her comment. She goes, grief doesn't end. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing people selling that grief ends. And it actually, I pulled back because I was surprised that that's how she was going to open up. Is it something that you see a lot? Do you see it a lot in the industry? Just curious about where you are with that.
Yeah, I wonder if you could help me understand, Sharon, when you say that this is sort of a thing, which, I mean, it doesn't sound like a good thing, but I want to make sure I understand it. They're saying that you will always feel like symptomatic in a bad sort of way.
Yeah, in a bad sort of way. As a matter of fact, there were about 200 people that commented on the post, grief doesn't end. And they were all, it doesn't end. It doesn't end. You stay like this for the rest of your life. There were a lot of people saying that. So it's
wow, I'm so
it's
sorry.
A lot of people. It's a lot of people that believe it. And it is one of the areas that I think we need to really get out as far as changing the conversation about grief.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe if this is kind of one of the unfortunate camps in the mental health industry, which is, and the general public can fall into this as well, is that we make assumptions with the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, as mentioned before, for all mental health diagnoses, like depression, like ADHD, personality disorders. And I think there is an assumption among the public, and perhaps unfortunately among mental health professionals, that a diagnosis means causation, genetic predisposition, unchangeableness, right? You were born with it and it's never going to go away. You've grieved, you've lost, and those symptoms will be with you forever. And that is something I completely disagree with. So I'm sorry that that's been your experience. I don't think that's the case. Our brains there's plastic, which means that they're changeable. And so even though some symptoms, because there is a physiological component to mental health, right? If I'm grieving, there are actual physical chemicals in my brain that are a part of my embodied experience. So I'm not denying that. And
Yeah.
sometimes those physical things, the way my brain is wired, will continue. And so maybe I might grieve forever, I might not. And again, the I think the most helpful thing is, are you okay with it? Because if your symptoms last forever, but maybe you have chronic pain, maybe that will never go away. But if I can learn to be okay with the symptoms, I might not really care as much because I can manage them, right? So, whether the grief lasts forever or not, as long as you're okay with how you feel, that's more important. If you want it to end, I think it can end.
Yes.
Again, I think we can have a different ending. We don't
Yeah.
have to stay in pain forever. So, on behalf of my industry, I'm sorry, Sharon, that
I don't
some
want to say,
people
because
seem to
I
think
believe
that.
there's grief coaches out there too that really push that narrative, and we have to have the conversation and give people the possibility. I also wonder if, because this happened to me after Donovan died, and I went back to my grief specialist who trained me, and I said, something's wrong. This didn't work. I remember distinctly having this conversation, and he and I talked for 45 minutes. He's like, well, did you do this? We went through every single thing. And he said, he leaned in the phone and he said, honey, you just really miss him. You just really miss him. And I think the parts and the times when we're really missing our person can sometimes be familiar of the actual grief pain. And
Mhm.
so there's a distinct difference between missing our person and absolutely having the grief pain. But I wanted to ask you that question, and I love the way you answered it. And thank you so much. I'm not pointing fingers and I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just saying that it's definitely something
Yeah.
we've got to change.
Yeah, and I think the other oh, sorry. I think the other challenge, I guess, around that is, because let's say for some maybe physical, like I said earlier, chronic pain, sometimes those symptoms don't actually ever go away.
Yeah.
But once we start labeling if it's good or bad to have symptoms for a lifetime, that changes the game, right? Because if we say, well, you shouldn't grieve for your lifetime, but you do, well, how do I feel about myself now? Versus if I say, well, I'm always going to miss my daughter. And actually, my sadness is never going to change for my lifetime, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Then, it doesn't really matter if I have symptoms forever because,
Yeah.
hey, it's perfectly normal. So I think that's also a factor in how we
Yeah.
approach this too.
Well, we have reached the end of our hour. I think this was such a beautiful time. If you're watching the replay, please still share. We have so many people sharing their stories, the losses. We do not feel restricted in being able to share your story. We are going to be looking at the comments later, so making sure that you let us know what's going on. That's why we're here, to be able. I saw something beautiful happen in the comments where different people were relating to each other, different people were offering their solutions. Our very next session is going to be about where to find grief support. So we just finished talking about does grief have an end, but now we're going to be talking about actual things to do, places to go, research things. So stay tuned with us. It starts at the top of the hour. I'll let these ladies give their final remarks, and then we'll see you guys in a few more minutes. I'll go ahead and let you go first, Sharon.
Naomi, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being on the platform. Thank you for agreeing to be a speaker at our event. I love that we can have a conversation, and really we've reached out to the people who are here today and sharing, and gave them new ideas on how to continue on their grief healing. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I want to say thank you so much for showing up today, to each and every person that showed up, that commented, that partook in the conversation and encouraged other grievers. Thank you. We see you. We absolutely see you. We feel you. We love each and every one of you because we were you, and we are honored to be here. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you. And I think for all of us that are participating on the speakers end, I think we all have different parts to the journey of healing that are valuable. So I do encourage you to listen to all the different offerings, because we're going to have different sort of nuances to this grief recovery process. I bring in a particular piece, Sharon brings in another one. We have a lot of overlap, of course. And so I really want to encourage you. And yes, again, I love that you are engaging as participants with each other. I think I don't want to, I guess, underestimate the power of the people beside you, not just us on the speaker screen, but the people actually in it with you, experiencing it real time. Reach out to those people,
Yeah.
create community, get to know some people that they might be the safe others that can sit with you in these places. So for me, I'm really big. One of the big things I bring, my emphasis is community. Share the process. It makes the whole process so much easier when you're not alone. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And Naomi, on the comment, I'll send it to you right afterwards to let people know how to reach you, your website, all of those things. But we didn't do our giveaway. We have a giveaway for today's live. I would like to do the giveaway to Teresa. We appreciate you for your shares. We appreciate you for getting the conversation going and being so transparent with what you're experiencing. So Sharon, I'm going to put on my game show voice. Tell her what she won.
Teresa, you won an Amazon gift card. Thank you for engaging. So what I need you to do is, before we end, can you please put your email in the, are you signed up for the event? Do we have you? Put your email and we're going to send you she is? Awesome.
Respond to any one of our emails that we sent out and just let us know so that we can reach out to you directly and deliver your prize.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so this broadcast is going to end, but if you go into the Facebook group or if you're watching on YouTube, just go to the next event. It's called Finding Grief Support. Finding Grief Support. We'll see you guys in a few minutes.